Hello, welcome to my bookshelf, and today I wanted to share with you guys all the books that I hope to read in the month of April. As always, it's pretty darn ambitious, but admittedly, most of them are audiobooks, and I seem to be able to read those a lot faster than my physical books, so I'm hoping that I can actually complete this TBR. So the first book that I hope to read is called Ill Will by Dan Choen, and I picked this book because I have a short story collection of Dan's and I'm really enjoying it a lot so far. I haven't actually finished it yet. I'm still in the process of reading that, but I really enjoy his stories. They're really well written and they're just really engaging and interesting and unique. So I'm very excited for a full-length novel, and I'm hoping that I'll enjoy this a bit more than the short story collection, because while we have this really interesting premise, it seems to end really quickly because it is a short story. So I feel a bit unsettled, and I just feel like there's so many things that are unresolved. So I want to know more, and so it kind of is frustrating on that level. So I'm hoping that a full-length novel will remedy some of those issues. This book is about two unsolved crimes that are in some way linked to this man and his memory, but it also says that it's linked to his self-deception, which I have no idea like what that's trying to get at. So that to me suggests that there's more going on here than we're like let on to initially. That maybe he's not a reliable narrator. So I'm very excited for this one. The next book that I hope to read is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson. This is nonfiction, as you can probably tell, and it is pretty much exactly what it says. It's about astrophysics, and it's for the everyday person who's on the go. So I'm hoping to learn a lot from that one, and I personally really love science and I love learning about things, so I'm very excited to find out what I can from Neil deGrasse Tyson. The next book that I hope to read this month is called Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. Paula Hawkins wrote The Girl on the Train, which was a big hit, which I unfortunately never got a chance to read, though I do own the book. I just haven't gotten to it yet. This is a mystery thriller, and it sounds really interesting, and because people really like her other book, I'm very excited to see what I think of this one and her writing. So this book specifically is about these two sisters. I guess one of them dies in some kind of water-related incident, and the sister goes to take care of the deceased sister's teenage daughter. So I'm very intrigued with this one. I've heard some mixed things about The Girl on the Train, so I'm not really sure what to expect from this book. But yeah, I'm very excited for it. Next book I hope to read is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This one is actually historical fiction, which I don't normally read too many of. It's a genre I'm not that familiar with as of yet, but I have read some and they do seem to be very powerful, and so I'm assuming this one will be good as well. I've heard good things about this book, so that's another reason why I want to read it. So this one follows a blind French girl and a German boy during World War II. Somehow their paths collide, and it's about them dealing with, you know, the horrors and the devastation that World War II caused. So I'm very intrigued with this one, and like I said, I've heard really good things about it, so I'm hoping for the best. The next book I hope to read is A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. This is the sequel to A Darker Shade of Magic. So this is a trilogy. This is a fantasy series involving magic. So because it's a series, I don't want to spoil you on what happened in the first one, so I'm just going to describe to you a little bit about the world that we're entering into in this series, because that to me is one of the most interesting parts of the story. There's obviously so much more that goes on here. So there's these 4 different worlds. I don't know what else to call them really. They have 4 separate histories. Besides London, which is kind of this unique space in this universe, London is the only place that is in the same exact place and has the same name. But other than that, all the other countries and cities are named completely differently. They're occupied by different governments and countries, and so everything is just very different. And on top of that, within the different Londons, there's a different level of magic. So there's 4 different Londons. Black London has like the most concentration of magic going on, and Grey London is our London, and it has the least amount. And then there's variance between there. That kind of gives you at least some sense of the story that we're dealing with here. So far I'm really enjoying it, so I'm very excited to continue on in this series. The next book that I hope to read is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. This is actually a short story, but it's like a standalone short story. It's not a short story collection, which is really interesting. You don't really see that a whole lot. It's a ghost story, and that's all I know about it. I'm really getting it because it's from Gillian Flynn, and I read Sharp Objects, and I really enjoyed that book, and I've heard really great things about her other books as well, so I'm very excited to read the story. The next book that I hope to read is Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This is nonfiction, and this is very different from any book that I've ever read, but it sounds really interesting. So it's set up as a letter to his son, and it's important to note that our author is an African American man because he writes and talks about the issues of race within this country a lot, and that seems to be, from my understanding, one of the main components and themes of this book. And so he talks not only about his own experiences in the world, but also what's going on nowadays. And I think he ties it into the future. And I get this sense that it's going to be like what he hopes for the future. But that's kind of my understanding of what this book is. And I've heard really good things about this book, so I'm very excited to actually read it and get his perspective on things. All right, the next book that I hope to read is my book of the month choice, and I chose The Lost Equation of Isaac Severy by Nova Jacobs. This sounds really unique and interesting, and I'm very excited about it. So it's a mystery, but I don't think it's a murder mystery. Though admittedly, there is a character that dies, I guess. So the premise of the story is that a mathematician leaves this equation for his granddaughter for when he dies. And the problem is the granddaughter doesn't actually know where this equation is. So my understanding, that's kind of the main premise of the story, is that the granddaughter is trying to find this lost equation. And presumably try to figure out like what the purpose of the equation is, like what it's actually like calculating. It sounds really interesting, and it definitely hits my nerdy sensibilities, so I'm very excited about this. It just seems unique and kind of fun, so I'm really excited about this one. The next book that I hope to read this month is Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the second book in the Illuminae Files trilogy, and I'm reading this month because Obsidio just came out, which I had pre-ordered, so I have it now, and since I didn't plan ahead, I still have to read this book so I can read the final book in the trilogy, hopefully next month. So that's why I'm reading it now. If you don't know, Illuminae Files, it's a young adult science fiction story, and it's written in a unique way, so I don't know if you can really see, but it's not a traditional narrative. It really is a compilation of different files. That's kind of the main premise of the story, is that's what you're reading, is these, confidential files. And through this, you're kind of being told a narrative story. So it's a really unique experience, but it's done really well, I think. And it's a really fun story. So I'm really enjoying it a lot so far, and I'm very excited to continue on in the series. All right, the next book that I hope to read this month is The Secret Lives of the Ymir Sisters by Nadia Hussein. And admittedly, I got this book, originally from the thrift store because of the cover. It's so bright and beautiful, and I think very fitting for springtime, which I'm hoping that reading this book will bring spring faster. But all that aside, this book is about the Ymir sisters. And they're the only Muslims in this quaint English village, and I think part of the story is them dealing with that, being the outsiders in this town. But they also have their own secrets and their own secret lives, I think even from each other. And then of course, unfortunately, this tragedy happens in the family and they have to deal with it. So it sounds like a really interesting story. It also looks like it'll be kind of quirky and funny at the same time. We shall see, but it also seems to have these really important messages and themes in it as well. So it sounds like a lot of really great things that I'm excited about. Okay, so the next book that I hope to read this month is called Andrew's Brain by E.L. Doctorow, which I really love that author's name. I don't really know how to describe this book because it seems to be a really unusual book. So the back of the book talks about how Andrew is thinking and talking. We don't know exactly who they're talking to or where they even are, to be honest. But they're telling us their life story and, how they got where they are right now. And I think that as the reader, we're trying to put together not only, the story as it's unfolding, as Andrew's telling it to us, but also I guess who Andrew is and like his current circumstances, because it seems like there's a lot of ambiguities at the start, and it seems like one of those books where you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on, and it's not really all given to you, at least not immediately. So it sounds unique and interesting, and I know that this could go in a lot of different directions. I'm hoping that the unique storytelling device actually works and that it, kind of adds a fun quirkiness to it, but it could also go wrong. I do realize that, when you take risks, sometimes they don't always pay off, so we shall see, but it sounds intriguing and it's really short, so I'm excited to see what this book is like. The next book that I hope to read this month is The Lamb's Supper by Scott Hahn. And this is nonfiction, and this talks about the relationship between the contents of the book of Revelation in the Bible and the Catholic Mass. Now, admittedly, before I even heard about this book's existence, I didn't really realize that there was a connection between those two things, and so I'm just genuinely really excited to find out more about what this connection is and what this is all about. The Book of Revelation is a very mysterious, odd book of the Bible, probably the one that's the most obscure and odd. But it just is so intriguing, and I'm very interested to find out what Bible scholars think of this book and what its real meaning might actually be. So I'm very, just like I said, genuinely excited about this one. So the last book that I hope to read this month is A Little Girl Lost by Drew Barrymore with the help of Todd Gold. And this is an autobiography, obviously, of Drew Barrymore. And if you know anything about Drew Barrymore, you'll know that she had a very tumultuous upbringing because of her life in the spotlight, and so she was introduced and just kind of fully immersed in this world of drugs and alcohol, and she got kind of wrapped up in it. And so this is kind of at least part of her journey of what that was like and how she was able to recover and rehabilitate, and become the wonderful woman that we know her as today. So I'm very excited. I love Drew Barrymore. She's always just such a ray of sunshine. Anytime I see her in interviews, she's always just really fun to watch. So I'm just generally really excited about this, because while I know maybe some general things that happened in her life when she was young, I really don't know a whole lot of details. So I'm very excited to hear what she has to share with us. All right, those were all 13 books that I hope to read in the month of April. And like I said, I realize it's very ambitious, but I am very hopeful that I can actually get through at least most of these books. Please wish me luck. As always, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and until next time.